Hey everybody, I have a Christmas present for you. I did this for my Renaissance Lit class, and so I wanted to make sure to give you all a Christmas present, especially since you're in the midst of trying to finish up your classes and papers and assignments, including some for me. So maybe you need a little bit of a break. So I've got 4 Christmas poems written by authors during the Victorian period. Tennyson, you will recognize, it's lyric 106 from In Memoriam. And then, maybe surprising to some, I have 2 Christmas poems by Thomas Hardy. And then we'll finish with a poem by Christina Rossetti, a poet that I wanted us to get to, but we just ran out of time. So here we go. Again, this is lyric 106 from In Memoriam. You'll remember that there are 3 Christmas poems in memoriam, and the tone of the poems change based on the adverb that shows up in the 4th line of each of those lyrics. I think it moves from sadly to strangely to calmly, the adverb in those 3 earlier poems. But this is lyric 106, and I think this lyric does mark a point at which we see Tennyson perhaps beginning to move to more of an upbeat feeling about his life in spite of the loss of Hallam. Lyric 106. Ring out wild bells to the wild sky, the flying cloud, the frosty light. The year is dying in the night. Ring out wild bells and let him die. Ring out the old, ring in the new, ring happy bells across the snow. The year is going, let him go, ring out the false, ring in the true. Ring out the grief that saps the mind, for those that here we see no more. Ring out the feud of rich and poor, ring in redress to all mankind. Ring out a slowly dying cause, and ancient forms of party strife. Ring in the nobler modes of life, with sweeter manners, purer laws. Ring out the want, the care, the sin, the faithless coldness of the times. Ring out my mournful rhymes, but ring the fuller minstrel in. Ring out false pride and place and blood, the civic slander and the spite. Ring in the love of truth and right, ring in the common love of good. Ring out old shapes of foul disease, ring out the narrowing lust of gold. Ring out ring out the 1,000 wars of old. Ring in the 1,000 years of peace. Ring in the valiant man and free, the larger heart, the kindlier hand. Ring out the darkness of the land. Ring in the Christ that is to be. I really like that last line, ring in the Christ that is to be. I think because Paul talks about Christ in me, the hope of glory. And that's always been a really curious phrase to me. I don't quite know what it means. And so I like reading this last stanza in this poem because it suggests something of the mystery of what that means to Christ in me, the hope of glory. Now, 2 poems by Thomas Hardy. Now, the first poem is entitled The Oxen, and I think it's sort of charming, and it's a poem that plays off of an old legend about the animals in the manger with Jesus, and how there has been a long-standing understanding by the animals about the meaning or the significance of that night in the manger. Christmas Eve, and 12 of the clock, now they are all on their knees, and elders said, as we sat in a flock by embers in a hearthside ease. We pictured them meek, mild creatures where they dwelt in their strawy pen, nor did it occur to one of us there to doubt they were kneeling then. So fair a fancy few would weave in these years, yet I feel if someone said on Christmas Eve, Come, see the oxen kneel in the lonely barton by yonder combe our childhood used to know. I should go with him in the gloom, hoping that it might be so. In our discussions about Hardy, many of you were a little bit disappointed in how dark Hardy is. I make no excuses for that. That was what he was as a writer. But in a poem like this, you at least get the sense that maybe there's something that gives purpose and meaning to life. The next poem by Hardy is The Reminder. It's a little more like what we're used to with Hardy, but nonetheless a Christmas poem. While I watch the Christmas blaze paint the room with ruddy rays, something makes my vision glide to the frosty scene outside. There to reach a rotting berry toils a thrush, constrained to very dregs of food by sharp distress, taking such with thankfulness. Why, O starving bird, when I one day's joy would justify and put misery out of view, do you make me notice you? So Hardy seems to almost never be able to get away from that kind of somewhat darker, shaded view of life. Now the last poem is by a poet we didn't get to. I really regret that, Christina Rossetti. Her title for it is A Christmas Carol, but it's often titled In the Bleak Midwinter. It was published at least by 1872, so right towards the last third of the Victorian period. Many of you have probably heard this sung. It's a beautiful tune. I won't attempt, of course, to sing it. But see if you can find it. Go on the web and see if you can find In the Bleak Midwinter and listen to it sung. But here is her poem, Christina Rossetti's In the Bleak Midwinter. In the bleak midwinter, frosty wind made moan. Earth stood hard as iron, water like a stone. Snow had fallen, snow on snow, snow on snow in the bleak midwinter long ago. Our God, heaven cannot hold him, nor earth sustain. Heaven and earth shall flee away when he comes to reign. In the bleak midwinter, a stable place sufficed, the Lord God Almighty, Jesus Christ. Enough for him whom cherubim worship night and day, a breast full of milk and a manger full of hay. Enough for him whom angels fall down before, the ox and ass and camel which adore. Angels and archangels may have gathered there, cherubim and seraphim thronged in the air. But only his mother in her maiden bliss worshipped the beloved with a kiss. What can I give him, poor as I am? If I were a shepherd, I would bring a lamb. If I were a wise man, I would do my part. Yet what can I give him? Give him my heart. Beautiful poem. Lovely sentiment there at the end. Anyway, again, see if you can find a sung version of the poem. Well, I'll be in touch on Friday. Of course, you may get this on Friday. I'm filming it on Wednesday, but I'll be in touch, and I think there's maybe one more thing I want to try to film after you're all finished with your work. I've got a short story by George MacDonald entitled The Gifts of the Child Christ, and I don't think I would want to try to read the whole short story. I mean, it's not that long, but hey, you can only listen to somebody read for so long. But I might film it in a couple of segments, and I think you'd be moved and also charmed by it. So I'll start working on that, I think. Anyway, all the best as you finish up all your classes, including ours.